Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us online today. My name's Nick, and I'm the Networks and Engagement Manager here at NCVO. I'll be facilitating today's webinar with the content delivered by our expert colleague from NCVO's trusted supplier, Zurich Insurance. Now, many of us engage in various partnerships, from informal project collaborations to participating in consortiums, or perhaps delivering services through a local ICS. But successful collaborations, regardless of their type, they need strategic planning and careful management to maximise opportunities and minimise risks, which we'll be talking through today. So in just a moment, I'll be handing over to Mike Henley, a risk consultant from Zurich Resilience Solutions. But before I do, there's just a couple of housekeeping points that I wanted to note. So first up, closed captions or subtitles have been enabled, and you can turn these on or off by clicking on the CC icon in the toolbar at the bottom of the screen. In just a moment, we'll be sharing the slide deck for today in the chat as a PDF. So if it would help with accessibility, you can download these slides to your computer to zoom in and out of them as we go along. Today's webinar is just an hour long, so we'll be running straight through without a break to 11 o'clock. And we will have time to take some questions in the final 15 to 20 minutes. So any questions that you have, please submit them via the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. Please don't add your questions into the chat as they're likely to get lost. If there's lots going on in the chat and you're finding it quite distracting, if you click on the chat window at the bottom of the screen, that will close the chat so you can just kind of focus on the content that's being delivered. You may also have noticed that today's webinar is being recorded, but everyone's joined in view only mode, which means that only people that you'll be able to see and hear will be Mike and I, plus my colleague Chanel, who's producing today's webinar. And finally, a copy of the slides will be sent after the webinar, along with a link to all of the things that we mentioned as we go along. So we've only got an hour together today, so let's get stuck into the content. And to lead us through the webinar on maximising opportunities and minimising risks in partnership working, I'm pleased to hand over to our expert from Zurich, Mike Henley.
Thanks very much, Nick. That was a very flattering opening there. Hello, everybody. Yes, as Nick's mentioned, I'm here to talk about opportunities and risks within partnership working today. I work for ZRS. I'm a risk consultant there. We cover a whole range of things, but our work is primarily with the public sector, ranging from local authorities through to charities, housing associations. So we have a lot of exposure to things like this. But as Nick mentioned, the time is somewhat short, so I will start. I can do I can do things you cannot. You can do things I cannot, and together we can do great things together. So when I was pulling this webinar together, I thought this really summed up the nature of what a partnership could be. It's a quote from Mother Teresa, and you'd be surprised how hard it is to find a very good quote about partnerships. But I thought this one really summed it up. And as charitable organisations, the ability to be able to leverage what you can do well and bring in that expertise from other places is absolutely vital. And it allows you to continue doing the great things that you do, as well as bringing in people who can further support you and bring their expertise and knowledge across to help. I've got some statistics here. Now, please feel free to have a guess into the chat function if that is going to operate to what these potential 4 statistics could be. We've got 49%, 70%, 13 billion, and 36%. I'll give it just a second before I continue to say what these are, but these were statistics that sort of pull through to some of the things we're going to talk about later into the session. I'll see if anybody has a guess for a second. Just so 49%. Oh, go on, Claire. I can see you've put 13 billion. So 49%. This is the number of charities who feel that they have the current amount of funds to service the demand. This is dropped from 58% in October 2022. This is highlighting that there's a protracted level of demand that's now overwhelming a lot of charities. The 70% refers to the millennial customer base, who have said 70% of which have said they are more likely to spend money with brands that are supporting a cause, and they are more likely to donate to those causes in turn when they are recognised through a partnership. 13 billion actually just refers to the total amount of charitable donations that have been received by the sector in 2023. This surprisingly is up 1.2 billion, but hasn't done anything to cover the increased costs in inflation that has gone along. And the 36% are the charities who are struggling to recruit staff and such as struggling to meet the demand. 27% of smaller charities I found out had to reduce staff over the winter period in 2022-23. So why are these statistics important? Well, I think they point to the fact that partnerships can help manage and deal with a lot of these concerns. If you're able to partner with recognizable organizations or organizations that can increase your reach, you are able to increase that donation base. You're able to access more people. The millennial customer base, and we'll touch on this just a little bit later, is engaging in new ways. And as such, new partnerships are needed in order for us to continue to do that. If you're struggling to reach staff, the partnerships can help provide volunteers. ESG and social responsibility days are now more prevalent than ever within the corporate sector, and the ability to access that additional resource is incredibly helpful. But above all, partnerships are a chance for us to think and work differently, to talk to people we might not otherwise get the opportunity to do so, and to open us up to new opportunities within the workplace. This gentleman on the screen here is a man called Abraham Wold. He was a Jewish Hungarian mathematician who escaped Hungary during the war and fled to America. There, he began to work for the Department of Defense, who were working on managing how to stop planes being shot down. They were noticing that huge numbers of planes were being shot down by the German Air Force, and as such, they were reinforcing the areas dotted in red, the shooting areas. When Mr. Wold arrived, he said, "You're doing this wrong. This isn't how this should work. You've made a mistake." He said you should be reinforcing the areas highlighted in green here. As such, because the areas that they're being shot at are the areas they can survive. If you reinforce the areas highlighted in green, we will get more planes, save several thousand lives over its course. And all this was done through thinking differently, through building additional resilience and moving forwards. So how does this link back to resilience in partnerships? Well, partnerships are all about how can we think differently and how can we move forward within organizations? What expertise, what knowledge and what skills do we need? And what can we offer to other people in return? So the first question that we often get asked when we talk about partnerships is, why should I partner? And as a charity, I've cut it down to four main reasons. The one is to increase that reach and fundraising potential. The second is to share best practice and knowledge, improve efficiency, and cut expenditure. So partnerships provide the opportunity for expanding reach and increasing fundraising. They allow us to harness new technologies and exploit opportunities. According to the Charities Aid Foundation, 80% of large charities, that's those with a 5 million plus turnover, invested in digital solutions and support during the pandemic. The comparison for those smaller charities with a million or less turnover was less than 60%. As the service burdens and financial pressures increase, it is important it is becoming more important than ever for the third sector organisations to seek these new and innovative ways to deliver their service models. The chance to partner opens up the chance to share knowledge with peer organisations and the private sector, as well as helping to improve efficiency of business models and cut away some of the expenditure that allows resource and money to be directed more effectively towards the end service user. In addition, other resource organisations are using partnerships to pool resources, whether that be office space, costs on IT equipment, sharing staff members. We've seen successes across the sector of people trying to condense so that they can pass more money on to the end service user. So the key considerations when we partner come across three things: the desired value, the value offer, and the created value. The central block there refers to the transfer of activities. The first is that irrespective of the type of model or partnership that you want to engage in, whether it be a merger, joint venture, shared service, strategic alliance, there needs to be an understanding of the value this will create this partnership. The bottom left block here focuses on the desired value. What do you want as an organization from this partner? What are the gaps that you are hoping that they can fill? And what can they bring into your organization? This should help to contribute to a better, more complete experience for those who are going to be using your service. When we talk about a service, there can't just be, oh, we want to partner with them because it seems like a good idea. It has to be bringing something into your organization. It has to be solving a problem. The second is the value offer. So this is the, why should someone partner with us? What do we have to offer? What is our benefit? What areas of our business make us an attractive proposition? As a charity, is it the fact that we do help raise awareness about certain high profile issues? Is it the fact that we are attractive from an ESG corporate social responsibility point of view? With a growing increase in corporate partnerships, these are key considerations. How can we make sure that our value offer is the best it can possibly be? Linking the desired value with the value offer, you have the basis for creating a mutual relationship where both parties are gaining. You can never be mistaken about this. People enter into a partnership for gain. So if you have a corporate partner or if you have a partner that's providing a service, everybody wants to gain something from this, whether it's exposure, understanding, hitting key metrics. There has to be something that you're offering in return. The transfer of activities must answer the questions raised in blocks 1 and 2. So, what are we giving to our partner and what are we receiving in return? How are our values connected and mutually accessible to each other? This is a key point that I'll come back to a few times during this. There has to be an alignment of goals, there has to be an alignment of values, and understanding where do we sit within that organization's priority list. And the final block is the creative value. This is the sort of diamond, the jewel in the crown. It's the chance to use the learning to exploit those new opportunities, innovate your business model, move forwards, and almost future proof your organization to help manage the partnerships that are in place. So, when should you partner? You've decided you want to do this, but when is the right time to do this? As we started to touch on there, partnerships need to be a mutually beneficial relationship. Both organizations need to be gaining from this. And in order for that relationship to be successful, there needs to be a strong building block of trust and understanding. And this is the same whether you're entering into a long term strategic partnership that's going to span several years or something short term arrangement that's only there to maybe plug a small gap. The key considerations that you need to ask yourselves when deciding whether you need to partner are, what have we done to solve this issue already? What evidence do we have that our partnership approach will work? Have we seen this work well in peer organizations or similar, um, who are in similar partnerships? And do we know of partners that are available and appropriately equipped to support us? And will there be genuine added value? So the pictures on the screens there sort of relate to what's the potential financial benefit for us? What can we do here that potentially raises our profile, increases those donations, gives us access to more resource? The second, the microphone, is how does this help us onto a new platform? Does this help us with our communications networks moving forward? Does this help to raise our profile? Does this give us access to a new market? The third is sort of what's the work that is going to be required here? What are the skills and tools that need to be transferred? What are we bringing into that organization? It falls back in again to that sort of what's the desire that we want to bring in, and also what are we offering in return? The fourth is behaviors and metrics. What metrics can we gain from this partnership? What will it allow us to understand? One, about ourselves, two, about the market, and three, about the overall op- um, community in which we work. And the final one there is the judge. What does this do from a legal, a regulatory compliance? Does it expose us to excess risk, or does it allow us to actually mitigate and transfer out some of those risks that are claiming resource and making it very difficult for us to continue? Huge organizations have been partnering and merging for a considerable amount of time. One of the ones that I think has been particularly prevalent recently is sort of Cadbury's have partnered quite recently with Alzheimer's Research UK, released limited edition uh, dairy milk bars in their iconic packaging. I think it was from 1915 to the present day, along with the charity's logo. And they've donated £200,000 in support of the search for a cure for dementia. So Alzheimer's UK, which are obviously a well-known charity, were able to piggyback off that sort of brand recognition that Cadbury's had to increase that donation flow. Um, Innocent and Age UK have encouraged members of the public to knit hats for innocent smoothie bottles, and this has resulted in over 1.5 million hats being made. The resulting kickback was 25p of every behatted bottle donated was donated back to the charity, and this raised just under £3 million. So huge opportunities there from those large corporate partnerships. Out of the charities that have merged, the most common barrier to success, though, was a culture clash. And the 52% of people that were surveyed have said this. This was in a Charity Aid Foundation survey last year. 52% of respondents said that the culture clash was the biggest reason for failure. So understanding, where do we align together? What are our goals? What are our ethics and morals? And how does that align us back to this organization is key. What you don't want is to end up in a conversation 18 months down the line where you realize, actually, we're not prioritized, we're not wanted, we are also not aligned from a moral standpoint, and actually we're a tick box exercise, which is really not the position you want to find yourself in when you're spending the time, the effort, the resource, and the cost implications of partnering with new organizations. So who should you partner with? There needs to be a mutual understanding and alignment of longer term strategic objectives of both of the organizations within the partnership. Alongside this alignment of goals we're discussing here, there needs to be a clear understanding of what both parties want to achieve. There needs to be an understanding of how larger partners, particularly if you wish to join them with those corporate sponsors, differ from potentially the smaller partnerships that you may have. You need to have a clear understanding of where you sit within the partner's priority list. With a large corporate sponsor, have you enough time to give a large corporate sponsor, sorry, will have enough time to give you what you need? Do they know who you are and how valuable you are as a partner? Value do you bring? Are you just that sort of tick box exercise where they can say, look at who we've partnered with for a year here, we've done it for a year, it's all great, and then next year we're going to leave? The other side of the coin is a smaller partner will be able to provide the visibility, growth, and resource that a larger partner can. They can't give you that sort of exposure that the large partners can. How do we ensure that we're striking the right balance between them both? If we look at the graph on the screen there, we've sort of got a strategic up in the top right with a leverage against sort of time, power, and influence. Sorry. So when we have high influence, high power partnerships, they sit in that big red strategic sort of top corner, ranging down to maybe having leverages, bottlenecks, and then non-critical. It's important for you to be able to understand where your partners sit and where do you sit for those partners. If you find yourself constantly sitting in that non-critical sort of area, are you getting the value that you need out of the partnership? And are you able to continue working in that way? Or is it time to review your partnership model? Now, I'll do a shameless plug for NCVO because they do put a lot of guidance out about partnership working, and I strongly advise you to access this. But one of the key points that they like to raise is look before you leap. Much like in life, in business, you do not want to rush into long-term relationships that may not have your best interests at heart. Give yourself enough time to effectively consider the choices available to you and whether this partner is the correct one. Your trustees here have a vital role to play. Ensure that they are using their knowledge and understanding of the organisation to act in its best interest. Is there wider industry knowledge that they can tap on, and do they have links and connections that you can lean on? When you do pick your partner, ensure that there is that sufficient overlap of goals. Are you all pulling in the same direction? And can the significant value be created for all partners to help growth and development? That graphic on the screen that I mentioned there showing the growing impact and influence of suppliers. Influence can increase the availability of resource, the number of suppliers, quality and value for money, whereas impact is covered by the potential impact of loss, service disruption, welfare, finance, and reputation. It's important to consider these when reviewing new partnership arrangements so that, once again, you haven't entered into something that's long term, tying the organisation down for an extended period, when actually it isn't in your best interests. Hopefully, I'm going to move that, yes. So using expertise. Now, I'm going to touch on a few things here. There's the financial aspect of this. There's tax. There's legal, and their partnerships abroad. They require a concerted effort and unified effort in order to ensure that they remain on track throughout their lifetime. There are many additional considerations here, such as contract management, finances, data sharing agreements that need to be considered and effectively monitored throughout that partnership. Those long-term considerations around tax and budgetary monitoring need to be considered as well. The way in which you monitor and handle data is a core concern as you work closely with an organisation, particularly when we're talking about the sensitive information that many of these organisations do hold. Although data protection legislation does not require a written agreement with you when sharing data between data controllers, we strongly recommend that you agree with your partner a data sharing agreement to help you both demonstrate that you act in accordance with the right legislation. There are a number of fines that can be levied, and there are a number of principles to be adhered to, particularly in relation to that collection of data surrounding vulnerable people. And I know a lot of people on the call today will work with those people, and they won't need me to tell them about this. Sadly, I'm not an expert in these areas of data, legal, finance. That's not my area of expertise. But your organizations do have legal and financial teams who can help you traverse these waters. Lean on that expertise within your organization to help you understand the world you are entering. Make sure the implications are understood from a legal and financial point of view, as well as where written agreements are required. A good example here is X amount of each purchase goes to the charity. Let's have that in writing. There have been numerous accounts where people say, oh, it was a handshake deal, this happened, that happened. Having things in writing solves a lot of these problems. There will also be solicitation statements in place from your partner explaining how the work they are doing will benefit your organization, as well as written agreements with your organization. But lean on the people within your legal department, lean on the people within your finance department, so that they can help you manage the partnerships here and work forward. There are also people within your insurance who are able to help and support as to what this can look like. From an underwriting point of view, there is a whole wealth of expertise in any of your insurance providers that you use. There are members of people like my team who can help you navigate the sort of risks and what does this look like from a strategic plan point of view. What are the opportunities? How can we navigate this? And hopefully that's why you're on the webinar today. Now you can see those organisations that have appeared on the screen. This by no means is an exhaustive list, but does provide some additional avenues for information. You've got the fundraising regulator. The government website is awash with information about partnerships. It is often wordy, very verbose, but the right information is there and is one of the best resources. The NCVO have fantastic amounts of information here. There is so much specifically geared towards partnerships, even just to get yourselves thinking and looking if you're going in the right direction. And also the Charities Aid Foundation, they publish things on an annual basis about partnerships. They publish things on finances, and I'm sure you're already aware of this, but use that expertise, use those resources that you have available in order to continue moving forwards. So what are the risks? The goals need to be aligned here. There needs to be an investment for long-term growth of the charity. And if the investment is short-term, it needs to be understood what the goals are for the duration of that partnership that you're going into. There needs to be clear, definable outputs here. We're finding a lot of concerns with larger partners using what we've defined as a cookie cutter approach, where organizations reuse old partnership models that may not be well suited for the parties involved. So instead of truly considering the reasons for making them, investing in the right sort of ingredients, tailoring what each is needed to the organization, Business and charities reach for what they've done before, churn it out in a new batch of identical partnerships, which in the end up being very unsatisfying for everybody and don't fulfill that maximum value. They don't give you that value for money that you need as an organization and that the partner organization needs. Dependency is also a huge concern here. Being reliant on one partner for your success is not a good thing. It can create a very, very unhealthy power dynamic that does not lead to positive outcomes for either organization. And it's very linked to that cookie cutter approach that we're sort of referencing there. It doesn't allow any room for growth. It leads to stagnation, and it places the power very much in the position of that partner. Ask a lot of questions. This is that failure to communicate point here, but ask a lot of questions at the start, during the partnership, and towards the end of your partnership. There needs to be this effective communication to help build trust and transparency required to build that successful relationship. Regular meetings to understand what is going well. Are we hitting targets? If not, why not? Do you know why X, Y, and Z has happened? Oh, I didn't know this was new. Let's keep that conversation going. Where there are roadblocks, what can be done to change this? Both organizations need to be mutually invested for this to work. There's a lot to gain from partnering with a charitable organization. But as I previously mentioned, this needs to be a two-way street. Alignment of the goals and objectives is key to ensuring that this remains the case is paramount. Have regular meetings with your partners, discuss the challenges, be open and honest. This is where you're going to gain that maximum value. A partnership built on trust not only helps each party to achieve their full strategic goals, but that also helps them to weather the challenges that will come in the future. There are always going to be challenges within partnerships. They're going to come. The communication helps the best. In a rapidly evolving and highly competitive marketplace, goals will shift and change, and changes will need to be made by both partners to accommodate this. When there's trust, these changes are so much easier to navigate. I can't stress this enough. Other key considerations here can be what do we do around legal and compliance, intellectual property, sensitive information, financial, what happens about our brand. We don't want to dilute our brand and our reputation by being attached to this organization. If there's negative press coverage and conflicts of interest, what do we do there? How do we handle a joint marketing approach? What are the marketing agendas, marketing dynamics, sorry, and do we have competing agendas here? And finally, one of the biggest problems that we see is exit difficulty. We want to leave this partnership, but nobody's thought about that. Everybody's thinking about the start, the fun, the great things of this partnership. But when it does go sour, how do we exit it? Have that exit arrangement put in place from the start, and it will make things so much easier for you. You're not stuck then in a bad marriage, effectively. Having that transparent relationship with your partners makes it easier to have these conversations, and it shows that when things do happen, there's a united front presented that everybody can move forward from. But where there are risks, there are solutions. Partnerships offer many benefits, but they also come with risks. To combat these and ensure successful collaboration, your charities and the partners can implement changes and strategies to help deal with them. I apologize. I've been a little bit under the weather, and I'm just trying not to sneeze. We need clear agreements, as I mentioned before. Establish clear written agreements that outline the roles and responsibilities and expectations placed on each partner. A memorandum of understanding here helps to create a detailed scope of what the partnership covers and where it moves to and from. Deliverables, timelines, and conflict resolution mechanisms. These should all be sitting within that MOU. When is this going to happen? Okay, what are the actions we need to complete this? And let's tick it along. Conflict resolution is so important. I sort of referenced it before. It comes back to that conversation, that open trust that we're trying to create here. Due diligence, background checks. Conduct thorough background checks on the people you're going to partner with. Ensure they have a good reputation. Ensure your values are aligned. don't be naive, that they will be doing the same to you. And you should cover yourselves there. We've seen a lot of high profile sort of reputational damage to charities. I think the most recent one is the Captain Sir Tom Moore Foundation, but that didn't seem to go so well after some of the formal partnerships sort of fell apart and it was left to the family to run. People didn't want to partner with that. It was quite well known, I think, that things were going sideways straight away. Review the financial stability of the partner to avoid those future financial risks. Have they made financial commitments to you that they can't commit to? Covering those roles and responsibilities again. What is the role clarity? Who is doing what? Let's prevent overlap and confusion. Accountability is so important within these relationships for specific individuals, the organizations as a whole, for the different aspects of that partnership, whether it's the legal, the financial, the donation side of things, the need to give volunteers, and what you're offering back in return in terms of marketing, brand awareness, and things like that. It wouldn't be a very good risk consultant if I didn't mention having a risk management plan here. Conduct the risk assessments to identify what the potential risks and develop strategies to mitigate them. Get together with your partner, get a partnership risk register if this is a large strategic partnership. Understand where you want to be and what are the things that are going to stop you from achieving those goals. Link that back with defined roles and responsibilities, actions, smart targets. I could go on all day about this. This risk management plan is the thing that's going to hold it all together for you. The contingency plans, sort of that business continuity or partnership continuity, to address the potential issues that may arise during the partnership as well. Link that back with the roles and responsibilities. Link that back with your memorandum of understanding and your agreements. And regularly review it. Is it still up to date? Is it still the thing we want it to be? Is it still reflective of the organization and the partnership as it sits now? And the final one really is cultural compatibility here. Assess the cultural compatibility of the partners to ensure smooth collaboration. Are they a large, huge corporate where we sit sort of bottom of the list, we're never going to get any access to them, and actually we're just the tick box? Or are they a very small niche partner who maybe can't offer us the resources we need? Make sure you know that those cultures are going to align. If you're partnering with larger organizations, make sure you have the scope and the ability to link back in with them effectively. You commit the resource that you're going to need at the time that you're going to need to deal with them. As I mentioned before, the last thing I want to touch on here is the exit strategy. Include termination clauses in the agreement to allow develop an exit plan to exit in the partnership altogether, or you're just simply moving between partners. By taking these proactive steps here, charities and the partners can mitigate the risks associated with this partnership working, and you can create a foundation for successful and productive collaboration. We don't want to cutter approach here, but having strong foundational movement when you go into the partnerships is hugely important. Understanding what those sort of foundational models are, good due diligence, defined roles and responsibilities, cultural compatibility, having a risk management plan, and good conflict resolution mechanisms are going to help you when you're building positive partnerships into the future. As I mentioned before, most partnerships fail because of a breakdown in communication and trust. So let's try and get that out of the way early. Let's try and build this relationship on the right footing and make sure we're getting into the partnerships for all of the right reasons. But what does the road ahead look like for the third sector? So I did quite a lot of research on this. Where does the future look in terms of third sector partnerships? And I've narrowed it down to an increasing collaboration, deployment of AI in partnership research, the impact of influencers, and yes, I mean influencers as in TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, a changing view of the charity and the charity sector, and partnerships offering a route to sustainability. So on the collaboration point, we're seeing more cross-sector partnerships, more collaboration between the third sector, private sector, and the public sector. These partnerships can leverage diverse resources and expertise to address complex social issues that a lot of you deal with. Global alliances and international partnerships will become more common for those larger charities, but this will allow organisations to tackle the bigger global challenges such as climate change, poverty, and health crises that we see across the world. And what we envisage here is this will be a trickle-down effect with smaller charities being pulled into the centre to help with these sort of global concerns as the world gets smaller due to the nature of technology. Deployment of AI in partnership research here. What we're seeing now is the use of AI for people to do the due diligence aspect of things. Can we use the artificial intelligence to go into our research, our timing, particularly for small charities where maybe the resource capacity is somewhat capped? And this in turn allows you to reach new audiences. It allows you to invest your people time in trying to find new places. Some charities are turning to celebrities and influencers to amplify their causes. There's the power of high-profile partnerships to bring attention to environmental and humanitarian issues in particular. Uh, uh, there's a younger generation who tend to now trust influencers over institutions, and whatever you think about that, that is now the trend. So this linked with other innovative funding methods such as social impact bonds, crowdfunding, could change the way that charities now think about and move forward into the fundraising sector. We see this changing view of charity. Younger people are now more aligned to the overall social good rather than singular causes, as this focuses on a new generation with a desire for charity from a community and social justice related causes. So sustainable development goals and partnerships will align their efforts sort of with more of these wider community sustainable development goals to create a more sustainable and equitable world. We're looking at more sort of the larger big ticket items rather than people aligning themselves with traditional old school singular causes. And in response to sort of increasing competition for resources, there's going to be this move again, like I mentioned, towards collaboration. We want to tackle these complex social issues together by joining forces and making sure that organisations can maximise their resources and prevent unified campaigns that promise greater impact. Corporate donors are shifting their funding models, demanding increased accountability and a partnership approach. Corporate foundations are stepping up as traditional donor models are re-evaluated. This links back to that idea of, are there new revenue streams? Are there new funding streams that will be accessible in the future through things such as those crowdfunding and access through influencers? The evolution from corporate sponsorship to partnership will reflect a broader expectation that the charity itself is going to demonstrate more measurable, sustained impact. And if charities can't meet these heightened expectations, corporations may bypass them as they look to launch their own social impact initiatives. We're seeing this more and more. Social impact from organizations is coming out quicker and quicker rather than going through a charity approach. But what we're going to see is that as there is more turmoil, financial, health crises, political instability, economic uncertainty, cost of living crises, will partnerships and local partnerships are going to need to be more resilient to manage this, as well as needing to be more adaptable to deal with the challenges that they're going to be facing. It's going to require more collaboration with governments, local and central, to ensure that long-term sustainability of the sector, the organisations within it can continue to deliver key partnerships and share ideas as we move forward. Just to finish off, I think this is one of the areas where partnership work, there's a lot of opportunity. There's been a lot of pressure and strain placed onto the third sector over recent years, and it doesn't look like improving anytime soon. So our ability as organisations to move forwards and identify these opportunities is going to become more important than ever. And I think overall, partnerships and who we work with and how we work, leveraging this to bring in new skills and expertise is going to be one of the most important areas to do this within. But with that, thank you very much. I think I'm handing back to yourself, Nick.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you so much, Mike. That was kind of such a comprehensive overview of partnership working in kind of like 35, 40 minutes. Listening to the webinar, like I can't help but feel that everything that you covered would be a fantastic kind of one-day course, kind of giving participants who kind of join us online today the opportunity to actually kind of talk through kind of some of the ideas that you shared. But we haven't kind of got that at the moment, but hopefully kind of this has given everyone online lots of kind of food for thought to take away back to their organisations. And just a reminder that we have recorded today's webinar, and it will be up online on the NCVO YouTube channel, hopefully kind of within the next kind of week or two. So if you did want to kind of revisit any of the content from today, you'll be able to kind of look back on it there. But Mike, before we move to the Q&A, we're just going to give you a little bit of a breather. And just for those of you joining us online today, if you're not yet a member of NCVO, we would love to welcome you to our community of 17,000 organisations, from the biggest household name charities to the smallest community groups. So you may not know that 70% of our members have a free membership, so that means that they've got an annual income of under £30,000, and 90% of our members are small, with a turnover of under 1 million. So do take a look at our many membership benefits, from the 30% off a place at our hugely popular training courses, to the huge number of downloadable tools and templates that are held behind the member paywall of the website. These will all help save you time, money, so that you can focus on the things that really matter. If you have any kind of questions whatsoever, do reach out to our membership team. You can scan that QR code that's on the screen now, or you can email the membership team at membership@ncvo.org.uk. But Mike, perhaps to kick us off with the Q&A, you kind of spoke lots about kind of the risks and opportunities of partnership working, but would you expect to see risks relating to partnerships on the strategic risk register of an organisation?
So it comes back to things like that. What's the proportionality of this? With anything to do with risk management, risk and opportunities, it's all about proportionality. What you don't want is your risk register to become a depository of just all the bad things that might happen in the world, because it would be never ending and it would go on forever and it would become very overwhelming very quickly. Now, maybe if your organization is moving to align with new large strategic partners that are going to affect those overall long-term goals, definitely. But just because you're changing to have a new partner doesn't necessarily mean it poses a strategic risk. What's important here is understanding how this potential new partner could affect your ability to achieve your long-term goals. And when I say risk here, that there's the positive and the negative side. So there's the downside risk we all traditionally think about, and there is also the huge upside risk of what partners can bring us in terms of, for the charities, new funding models, expertise that we can get to, wider reach and things like that. So what I'd encourage people to do is think about it in terms of their long-term goals, and if they think this is going to potentially have a huge cross-cutting impact across their organization, then yes, definitely that is worth consideration.
Fab. Thanks. And I suppose for many organisations, they're not necessarily always going to be walking into kind of partnerships with kind of large corporate organisations or with other kind of charities. Lots of the time, they might just be kind of working in partnership with a single kind of facilitator or with a consultant. Is there any kind of different approach that you would recommend in working with just kind of individuals versus other organisations or companies?
Yeah, definitely. So when we talk about sort of large corporations, there's a lot more rigmarole there. There's a lot more moving parts. When you're dealing with very small organizations, consultants and things like that, there's a lot less to do. You can have a more bespoke approach to that partnership. You can maybe go into a lot more detail about what you're going to get out of it. But the underlying thing of, should we have a written agreement? The answer is still probably yes. Should we assign those roles and responsibilities? Absolutely. And should we have an exit strategy if we do decide, even though it seems like a happy marriage at the time, we both want to get out? Definitely. What I would encourage is, when you're working with smaller partners and you're maybe the larger organization, understand what that partner can bring to you, and can it fulfill your own growth needs, aspirations. It's very easy sometimes to think of yourself as the small fish in the pond, but there's also that, if we are working with that solo practitioner potentially as a consultant, can they actually deliver us along the journey we need to be on? Large organizations, obviously, it's sort of the inverse, where we have a lot of concerns around just being left behind, and that's what you don't want from your partnership. We tend to find those huge corporates, it can be an ESG tick box for a lot of them. So you need to be very explicit about what you're getting out of those relationships as well.
Definitely. And I'm just going to post into the chat now. So a couple of years ago, NCVO had some funding from the Lloyds Bank Foundation. And we completed a report that was called Rebalancing the Relationship. And it was all about kind of looking at how kind of small organizations and larger organizations can come together to work in meaningful partnerships. So there's kind of lots of case studies of successful partnerships between kind of smaller and larger organizations, but it might be kind of useful kind of today's kind of conversation. And there's lots of kind of guidance and tips and advice and guidance within that report about how you do kind of successfully kind of work in partnerships as well. But Mike, for the next question, I'm going to kind of combine the one from Satya and the one from Kirsty around like processes for kind of working in partnership, but then also kind of timescales. So kind of Kirsty's kind of said that the reality is often that kind of funding opportunities that drive the need for partnerships to be set up. But more often than not, you're having to respond and pull together a tender to that kind of funding opportunity within a matter of weeks. So how have you got any kind of advice around how do you kind of go about that? What steps can you put in place? Kind of what processes should you follow when you are really kind of limited on time?
Yeah. So as we sort of spoke about initially, we don't want this cookie cutter approach. We don't want everything to be the same. Not every funding opportunity is built the same, and not every partnership is going to have the same value. But that being said, there are certain things that you can do to sort of potentially take some of that burden off yourselves. So we're talking about, can we have a tender template? Now, the information within this tender can change, but you're not having to start from scratch every time. I also saw another question in there around sort of risk management frameworks and documentation and things like that. Have things templated so that you understand the sort of what we define as the battle rhythm or the drumbeat of what you're trying to do before you start going in. We understand that it's a very dynamic and reactive sort of industry, in particular in relation to funding agreements, but having strong foundational understanding of who do we want to partner with next, what are our goals and opportunities, and what are the funding streams that are going to allow us to do this most effectively. Sometimes I think there can be a scattergun approach where we're just reaching out for anything and everything. If there are sort of tender portals or funding portals that you can access, I would 100% recommend those if things are coming out regularly, to allow for that sort of longer term slightly planning, which then hopefully, he says, touch wood, gives you a little bit more time and means that you're not engaging into partnerships sort of ad hoc and having to rush around last minute. But I do appreciate how busy everybody is within the industry and within the sector. It can feel a little bit like that sometimes. Having some templated documentation that you can sort of bring out is always really helpful, and you can bespoke that to whatever need you want it to be. And having people who are experts in this field, whether that's a consultant, whether that's within your own teams, pulled sort of together tender teams who can do that. That's what we do at Zurich. We'll pull a person from each department, tender out, bespoke tender, but it's gone from a one person struggling in 3 weeks to 5 people doing it together, and that team approach often helps as well.
Great. And then there's a couple of kind of questions in there about where can we go to kind of source kind of different kind of templates and solutions. And I know kind of after today, we'll be sending out a follow-up email, and we're going to include a link to all of the NCVO kind of relevant tools, templates, documents for you. And certainly, I suppose, Mike, if you've kind of got any kind of at Zurich that you're able to share, we'll include that in the follow-up email as well.
Yeah, there's definitely some things that I think we could share out here in terms of like risk management frameworks and stuff like that. If you have one for your organization, that forms a great basis. Not only does it have probably most of the relevant headings and information in it, it also fits your own brand. Government website, but there are things on there that give you a very basic but good template that you can use for things like that. So I'd encourage you to use those. As Nick's mentioned, the NCVO website does have things as well, and there are templates, but in the follow-up email, we'll be able to pull a few things together that can give you sort of a basis to work from.
Marvelous. And then the final kind of question for you today, Mike. I kind of feel like from the partnerships that I've kind of been involved in, lots of the time it's the people who are involved in those partnerships that have kind of made it successful. So what would you kind of suggest are kind of like the number one skills required to cement an effective partnership?
If I was to pick one, it's the communication aspect. It's the communication that links very much to what you're saying, Nick, about the people. They make the partnerships tick, but I think if you could communicate effectively, set that structure in place so that you are talking to your partner all the time, you're aware of your responsibilities, you're aware of what you want out of each other. That I think ticks so many boxes in sort of every walk of life. I think most of the problems arise from people not talking to each other effectively enough. And I think if you can get those conversations happening, take that first step to the difficult conversation, it's going to things are going to run a lot smoother. So yeah, for me, it's the communication point, and the second is making sure you have the right people in the right roles for sure.
Perfect. Michael, I think that kind of brings us to the end of the Q&A. Thanks for kind of facilitating kind of all those questions, sorry. And as I said, that we'll make sure that we include like a comprehensive list of kind of tools and resources and signposting in the follow-up email, which is actually kind of what this slide is all about. So if you don't already know, like there is so much kind of help and guidance on the NCVO website. Some bits are free and available to everyone, and there are other bits, other resources that are behind the member paywall. But the two areas that I thought that were worth highlighting today are resources on collaboration, which includes tips for collaboration, advice on working in consortia, different ways of working collaboratively, and you'll find a joint working agreement checklist. And if you're anything like me, I love a checklist, it's super helpful. Plus, we've got a dedicated area of the website that outlines the steps that should be taken in managing risks. So I think Chanel's posting links to those in the chat, and again, we'll include those in the follow-up email. But for any questions that you can't find the answers to online, NCVO also has a free helpline for small charities. So you can scan the QR code now on this slide to find the details of how to contact them, and contacts again will be included in that follow-up email. And today, obviously, the webinar has been delivered in partnership with our trusted suppliers at Zurich, who provide insurance to charities, social enterprises and community groups of all shapes and sizes. They offer a fixed package for organisations with an income of under £300,000, where cover includes a £5 million public liability, including cover for volunteers, personal accident cover, and up to £10 million for employers' liability. The QR code that's on screen will take you to further information of how Zurich can help and support your organisation, and you can also find out more about them in NCVO's Trusted Suppliers area of our website. But in our final minute together, any second now, a snap poll will appear on your screen to get your initial thoughts on how you found today's webinar. If you have time, we'll also have a short feedback survey, which will appear on your browser as you leave the Zoom call, where you can give feedback on the things that were helpful, what you'd like more information on, and most importantly, where we can make improvements. But I hope the past hour has been useful, and you've got a list of things that you want to do and conversations that you need to have with your colleagues and at your organisation. But Mike, huge thanks to you for guiding us through the last hour and for answering the many kind of questions that we've got. And thank you to all of you for joining this webinar today with our partner, Zurich. We hope to see you all again soon.